This is Champagne Confidential,
where real conversations meet real life.
We're a therapist
And a lawyer.
And longtime friends
who are not afraid to talk about the things most people avoid.
We're talking motherhood,
relationships,
work, pressure, and boundaries.
Hard conversations.
The kind you usually only have after hours.
No scripts.
No filters.
Just honest conversations.
So grab a glass, you're invited into the conversation. My support system is not just one thing. I have a lot of different people that play different roles in my life. We need each other. And humans need that level of connection to survive.
If there are people who bring nothing but negativity to the table, it's hard and there's just no reason to foster that relationship anymore. When you make a meaningful connection with someone, you should hold on to that. So today we have a topic: bubbles and boundaries. I know in the past we've spoken a lot about relationships and how supportive our husbands have been. And we both recognize that they're not our only support, right? Mm-hmm. We have great friendships, great families. And today's topic focuses on those other support systems that, you need really at this stage in life. I have to ask, what would you say your number one support system has been over the past few years?
Yeah. I feel like, I know what kind of prompted us to have this conversation was that we were reflecting on past sessions that we've had together, episodes, and we've always talked so highly about our partners, which is, I think, such a great thing, but also recognize that not everyone has either a supportive partner, maybe you have a partner, but they're not supportive on your journey for growth in some aspects, or maybe, you're kind of doing this thing alone. And that doesn't mean that you can't still be successful in the things that you do in your life, whether that's your business or just trying to optimize your life in general, right? So for me, I think I've always tried to really look at it like it takes a village. And I know we always hear that concept, mm-hmm. and it's kind of an old school concept, but like if you really, really think about it, this is how we've been doing things for years and years and years and years, right? We need each other. And humans need that level of connection to survive, not, let alone be successful. We need it to survive.
Right.
So like trying to rethink or just be a little bit creative, because I feel like in our everyday life, we're always so focused on just sort of getting through things, just trying to kind of get by, making it happen the best that we can, and maybe not being super intentional about the support systems that we have in our life. So I've always tried to, I feel like I've had many different types of support in my life, right? Family has always, thankfully, in my position, been something that I've been able to heavily rely on. I have a wonderful support system in my in-laws. I have a wonderful support system in my parents, in different ways. My parents are still working. They're not retired yet. My mom's partially retired, but so the accessibility to them is not always as great as, it could be, but I also have my in-laws that have been super helpful. But as times shift and things happen, we have a new baby coming into the family, and we have 2 other little babies in the family. The priorities shift to where now my parents, who used to only have my kids, now mm-hmm. have other children to, kind of prioritize too. So I've had to get a little bit creative in that way. And I think for me, my support system is not just one thing. I have a lot of different people that play different roles in my life, and I really try to be mindful of how I can help them too. Friends, neighbors, colleagues. It really kind of runs the gamut. And again, I try to be really creative about it. Even simple things like a carpool. I feel like sometimes people are hesitant to initiate a carpool. I'm like, why? Carpools are the best thing that were ever invented. I don't know how I would be able to do all that I do without relying on a carpool. And I feel like when you start opening that dialogue with another parent about, even if I don't know them super well, but just know our children are on the same team, have the same things going on, I've never had somebody say, no, I don't want a carpool. That's just, so I think it's just really about getting creative. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think in life in general, right? If you're fortunate enough, and we all have support systems, who they are, how we have them or create them, obviously varies. But I know from a very young age, right? My parents have always been so incredibly supportive throughout my entire life. I think obviously my husband, we've spoken about this, but once I had children, things kind of shifted. And that's where I found I really heavily relied on my family, on my in-laws. We were very lucky to have support there. But I think as my kids aged, that's where I started to look to outside sources, the friendships. And I think it was kind of unexpected, and like you said, I always was hesitant to say, could you do me a favor? I know you're going to the practice. Would you mind picking up my son because I have to be somewhere? I hesitated to ask that, but then I realized the moment someone asks that of me, of course, it's not even a question. It's a no-brainer. Of course I want to help them. So in the same breath, they're, I'm sure, thinking the very same thing. So I think there's an adjustment period, but I do think once you get to that point where you can embrace the support systems that are out there, your life really changes and shifts. And friendships are huge. And I almost feel like the friendships that you create as you get older, not that your older friendships are not as important, they certainly are, but they're almost different, right? You're in a different stage in life, and the friendships that you create later in life, you're a little more selective in who you have in your life and how you let them become involved, right, in such an intimate setting. I know that we spoke a little bit about this before the break, but how friendships shift too. I think it's hard because, again, as we get older, our kids both are kind of hitting that middle school, high school era in life, and the friendships that we established when they were in elementary school or in preschool, those friendships that you valued so very much, right? The play dates when you were all together, have kind of shifted. And it's hard because I know that we've both encountered situations where we've had to kind of assess, are these friendships still important to us? Are they still what they were back then? Right. And that's kind of a tough
a tough thing.
Conversation to have.
And especially because some of our friendships have happened with our kids.
Right.
And our kids have evolved. Just like, I think back to like my childhood. My parents were not very invested in my friendships. They knew my friends. My friends were at the house, whatever the case was, but they weren't really friends with my friends' parents, right? They knew who they were. They would say hello. They would have short conversations, but they weren't spending a tremendous amount of time with them. There was a clear, that's your friend's parents. That's how it kind of was. And I feel like for my kids, it's brought some blessings where I've met you, right? It's been some really great friendships that have developed through my children. But I've also learned that doesn't mean that all of my friendships need to be through my kids. And just because my kids are having a shift, maybe that's all the friendship was just between our children. And that's okay. And being able to recognize that it's not a personal thing. It's just that our children are developing and going in different directions, might have different hobbies, different interests, and sometimes friendships sustain that outside of that, and sometimes they don't, and that's okay.
Right.
It's not personal.
It's funny because growing up, I was part of what's called a play group. I mean, we don't have that here, but, and my mom, she was a stay-at-home mother, and she was looking for an outlet for us to make friends. Yeah. We didn't go to preschool. So it was a nice way a couple times a week to just meet with other children and play, and the parents hung out. And the friendships that she established in that play group have stood the test of time. I mean, I just went, and it's funny because the kids were not the same age as me. So One of my very best friends is a year younger. It wasn't as if we made these friendships through school, right? We
Okay.
were both in the same kindergarten class and our parents became friends. It was very different. And the funny thing is, throughout, obviously many, many years and college and children and marriages, we've all still maintained those
Wow.
friendships. I just went 2 weeks ago to a baby shower for, again, a friend who's 6 years younger than me,
Mm-hmm.
and our parents. And it was a sprinkle, and the only attendees were, the all of the moms from the play group and
Wow.
yeah, it was really,
That's nice that that
it's
maintained.
so nice, and it just goes to show that you don't necessarily have to establish friendships through classmates or
Mm-hmm.
you when you make a meaningful connection with someone, you should hold on to that, right? No matter what is involved there. And I think that's definitely one thing that I've learned over time. I mean, I've met some fabulous people, through my kids.
Sure.
And I'm fortunate to have these friendships that have turned into just really great friendships. I think it's nice and comforting to be in a place now where, the connections that I've made, I know who my true friends are, and I'm
Mm.
comfortable with that. I often wonder why people struggle with that at this age, at this stage in life.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it kind of goes back to that confidence piece,
Yeah,
right? Like I feel like sometimes I think about, you know, the friendships that I have now are because I want to be friends with these people,
right.
not because I'm trying to fit in or keep up with the Joneses or, whatever the case may be. It's because I actually enjoy their company. I like what they bring into my life.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people get caught up in that. I think a lot of people get caught up in almost like that high school mentality around wanting to, again, to kind of like touch in on the therapy side of it, the wounds that they have from their earlier life
All
of
right.
just maybe not fitting in high school or whatever the case was, or just struggling to get past that point of insecurity within themselves around friendships. And it almost like replaying in their adult lives. Whereas, I can say for myself, I feel like I've had so much growth there that my perspective is just different. I want to be
Yeah.
your friend because I value you. I love what you bring into my life. I feel good around you, not because I feel that this is going to, make me elevated in some way, right? Like, or it's like a personal endeavor to be in this group, then I know I've made it in life, right? It's
Right.
it's more it's more intimate than that. It's more about just wanting to put people in my life that make me feel good, help me grow, have the same values that I have and aren't so consumed with the social climbing or the, trying to use this as a leverage to get them to the next space in their life. I'm not about that now.
Right.
It's like you're in my life because I love you and I care about you and you make me happy. It's fun to be around. Like you contribute something positively, right? So I feel like that's where a lot of people get caught up a little bit is just trying to, not having healed their past stuff around wanting to fit in or wanting to feel included and making it all about that rather than about the person they're in the friendship with. Does that make sense?
That does. It totally makes sense. I think there's a little bit of an element, when your kids are very young. We moved to Sayville. We didn't know
Yeah,
anyone,
same.
and we definitely initiated friendships at the preschool level,
Mm-hmm.
with, kind of looking around and seeing who looked welcoming in the room,
Yeah.
who had kids the same age. So a lot of my friendships definitely grew from there. But I think at this point, you kind of not weed out is a bad way to put it, but you kind of like cut the fat, right? If there
Mm.
are people who bring nothing but negativity to the table, it's hard, and there's just no reason
Mm-hmm.
to foster that relationship anymore. It's kind of like I think we're all so busy, especially at this stage in life. We're all busy with our careers. We're all busy with our children. We're busy with aging parents and being the support for our parents. I think there's just no room for the challenging friendships. At least
Yeah.
that's the way that I feel. I'm not saying you
It's
shouldn't work
exhausting.
at your relationships, but like if I don't show up to something or, an event and someone's taking that personal, it's kind of a
Mm,
turn off,
I
at
get
this
it.
stage in life. So I think in seeing how important those support systems are at this stage,
Mhm.
I really value the friendships that, are on the same page as me, we're there for each other. We're there to boost each other up. We're not looking to be a social drain on one another or
Sure.
really take anything from anyone. It's
Mhm.
like you said in our last or one of our last podcasts, there's really no reason for competition, right?
Mhm.
Competition in business. There was no room for competition in friendship either. I think the friendships I value the most are the friendships where, you really feel that person loves you and loves your children or
Mhm.
loves your family, loves you for everything you are. They stick out like sore thumbs. They're just so, I mean, not like sore thumbs, a bad thing, right? They stick out like
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But that's at least for me, that's key in a emotional social support
Yeah,
system now.
yeah. And I think just rethinking friendships, right? Like I always say to my husband, like he'll be like, why do you keep this one around? Why do you keep that
Yeah.
around? And I'm always like, well, let me just tell you, she's a good time, Sally. Like she's a good time. So
Yes.
I will go and have a good time with this friend,
Right.
but I might not have a meaningful friendship with her in the same sense that I do, with other friends I have in my life, or I'm not going to go into business with this
Right.
person, right? Like I have to look at it from a perspective of, okay, so you're serving something in my life in a meaningful way. And maybe it's just for a good time. And that's okay, and being
Sure.
able to separate that it doesn't have to be deeper than that. As long as my friend sees it the same way too. If you're finding yourself in a friendship where, you're giving so much output and they're not giving input, or you're feeling like, okay, I have this sort of space between the friendship because this is what works for me, and they're really trying to come in and I'm not okay with that, then I might have to say, okay, yeah, you're a good time, but this is just not working.
You
It
know,
sounds terrible, but it's really just the
no.
reality of the friendships. And I know we did a whole episode on turning 40, and definitely check that out if you haven't. But I feel like that's 40, right?
Yeah.
Like after 40, I'm not investing more than I want to in a friendship because I feel obligated. I will have those friends that I feel close to and connected to that I can lean on emotionally. And then I have the friends that are a good time and I like to just go out and have a couple of drinks and go, have a good time with. And then I have the friends that, I can really connect with and talk about vulnerable things about my kids or my job or whatever the case is. And it's okay to have different friendships in different boxes as long as they're okay with that too,
Right.
you
So it's
know?
funny you say that because I was teaching one of my children that lesson, right? He had a situation with a
Mm,
friend, and the friend just kind of, did something that was, in my opinion, not cool and
mm-hmm.
kind of left him high and dry. And then it was disappointing. And about a week later, he invited him over, and my son was like, oh, all right back in it, right? Ready to kind of like
Oh,
full
yeah.
force hang out with him all the time. And I felt like I needed to teach him the lesson of listen, there are good time friends, right? Just because somebody does something wrong to you, and I really think that's an important lesson to learn, right?
Yeah.
Especially at a young age. Like, just because somebody does something you don't agree with doesn't mean you should cut them off,
Sure.
because I think that's a danger zone, right?
Yep.
Just completely cutting off
Mm-hmm.
relationships is not healthy. But I think recognizing that this person maybe isn't the person that you want to put all of your eggs into that one basket, right? They're a good time. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
fun with that friend? Can you go out with them and have a couple laughs and enjoy them? Or maybe you have the very best time with that person, and that's okay too. You just have to recognize that is that type of friendship, and know that if you really needed something, they may not be the person who's going to be there for you, and that's okay.
Right.
But you definitely need to know and learn
Mhm.
who those people are. Who are the people that you can rely wholeheartedly on, and who are the people who are there just for that good time. And I think
Yeah.
there's definitely a box for each. And when you find the friendships that you can count on, they're ride or die, you're busy, they're busy, you get it. When you get back together, you're total support for one another. I think those are the friendships that you really have to foster,
Yeah, it's a tough lesson. I mean, I feel like I learned that at 40,
Yeah.
and for your son to be kind of facing that now and navigating it a little bit and having that conception around that and understanding is great because it's going to be a life of that, right?
It's a rough road.
It's a life of figuring it out,
Yeah.
And I think just to kind of bring it back to support systems, different support systems in your life might be good for different things, and being in tune with that for yourself. Do you feel like there's things, I mean, I don't know if you can relate to this personally or even just kind of thinking about it, like where you've hesitated in asking for support or help from someone in your life?
Always. I mean, I think I am not, and again, this is probably just a personality trait. I don't like to ask for help at all, right? I kind of like to feel like I can do it all on my own.
Sure.
And I almost feel like asking for help is a little bit of a burden to others, which again, like I said, it's comical because I love to be asked for help and I love to offer help and I love to support other people. So I'm not sure why I have that, issue. I definitely can say that when I let my guard down and I start to delegate or I start to ask for help, my life becomes a lot easier.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, it's not, it's not something that it's something I want to work on. Let's just say that. I
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
think that, asking for help and support is important.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes because, I think societally maybe, we've learned that or felt that it was relayed to us along the way that asking for help is a weakness, that it means that you can't do it all on your own. You need to lean on others. And I've struggled with this myself too, of just trying to, people will say to me like, "Well, you don't seem anxious. You don't seem stressed." And I'm like, are you kidding? I am stressed to the max. And usually I'll have to say to myself, okay, where can I delegate? What am I doing in my own life that I'm neglecting myself? Because I think we just get, I always think about like the subconscious of just how remote we live our lives. Like a lot of times when we're in our subconscious mind, we're just going, 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 going. We're not intentional. We're not thinking. We're not aware. We're just moving through the motions of life, right? And when we're in that headspace, it's very hard to think about, who can I ask for help right now? I just need to get through this moment. I'm not thinking about delegating or ways to outsource or, because I'm just trying to get through it rather than figuring out ways to make it easier for myself. So it takes a moment, I think, if you can sort of like frame it, when you're in your subconscious, you're almost like a zombie. You're just going through life, one thing to the next, drop off, pick up, go, work, dinner, make the bed, get up, get my 8 hours. Like you're just kind of going through all of those motions in your subconscious. Whereas like when you shift to a conscious state of mind, you're in this space of like, okay, how can I do better? How can I make my life easier? How am I going to be able to minimize my stress? You're thinking from a different headspace, right? When you're conscious. So trying to sort of shift yourself to that mindset so that you can say, okay, is it so bad if I get help with a ride here and there? If it means that I can be making dinner and I'm helping you, I'm taking your kid and you're helping me, we're working together. I mean, it's kind of a win-win all around, right? So I think trying to kind of look at the delegation piece as a strength rather than meaning a weakness that you need help, and more or less focusing it in on, how can we kind of have that mutual benefit to one another. And I do think people want to help.
Yeah.
Like you just said, you're like,
Yeah.
I want to help people. So if you do, why is it that on the outside we feel so worried about putting it on somebody, when in reality, most people want to help?
I know. I don't know the answer to that, honestly, because I think that, and for the most part, if you're taken advantage of, or if you're taking advantage of someone, right? So,
Hmm.
and I really don't feel that very often
Yeah.
when, you're talking about carpools or helping people. I mean, we're all in the same boat, especially where we live, right? You have multiple children, you have sports, music, art, whatever your
Yeah.
kids are involved in, plus your business, plus your, navigating the schedule of your partner. I mean, it's family obligations. We're all in this together. I think it's where we live, to be honest with you. We're all very go, go, go. And I think we're all in the same boat, and helping each other out and
Yeah.
making our lives a little easier is what creates a great,
Yeah. But maybe
space.
that's a piece of it, is that people feel like they're taking advantage of someone, or they're feeling like guilty for needing the help. But I think if you can offer it in a way that's mutually beneficial to your support system, that allows you to optimize yourself in the process, what's the harm in that?
Yeah.
I remember, my daughter had one of her friends, the mother's very busy working mom, and she had to rely on me a couple of days for picking her daughter up. And I said, she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so apologetic. And I was kind of like, are you kidding? I have to go and pick my daughter up anyway.
Right.
It's not a problem. And guaranteed there will be a day that I need you.
Yeah.
So like I try, and I hope that most people think that way, of just like this, it's mutual benefit. It's mutual. Like I might need you some days, you might need me. This is the village we're talking about, that we're here for each other. And that's what makes it function. That's what makes it work.
Yeah. I agree with you. I feel like I'm hearing everything you're saying. And I'm really going to try to kind of shift gears and not feel so stressed about asking for help, And listen, I have great support. I mean, I'm so fortunate with great friends and great family, who are willing to help out at each juncture. And same, anytime that I have the opportunity to help, I'm happy to do so. It's just,
Yeah, it's hard to sometimes ask. I feel like once you can get past that, then the sky's the limit.
yeah.
And I feel like too, thinking, like I said before, kind of thinking creatively about it. Like, okay, so let's say my sister did this with her kids at one point, where like she needed babysitting, and she's like, I can't find anybody that can do the hours that I need, but I know my neighbor's home. And she's like, I'm going to barter with her. I'm going to say, look, you want to go, how about you do a date night with your husband Friday night or whatever the case is. And if you can help me out with my kids Thursday, because I have to work. And it worked out great. It was like such a mutual.
Sign me up for that.
Right? It's like a
I'll
mutual
happily
thing.
do that, yeah.
It's like a mutual thing. You watch,
Yeah.
you scrub my back, I'll scrub yours.
Right,
kind of thing.
sure.
It's like
Sounds
help
great for everyone.
right? So I think it truly is about like getting a little bit creative, because I'm just thinking about, and I tend to do this where I try to think about everybody and everybody's situation, but like, okay, so maybe you're a single mom and you don't have access to a partner to help you, but you have a neighbor that's great. Or maybe you're in a rural area and you don't have, a ton of, we have a really tight community where we live. We have a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some people aren't so fortunate to have so many people, but maybe your child goes to school somewhere and you can make one connection that you can barter on your after school care or whatever the case is, to be able to start your little dream career. It's like you have to really think sort of outside the box
Right.
of where your support systems live. It may not always be so straightforward like your family.
Yeah.
It might have to be kind of thinking about how I can make this work in other ways.
Yeah, and I think just recognizing that people are good, right? For the most part, the hearts of people are good. They want to help. Everybody wants to help each other out. So it's not, the ask is really not a big ask, especially like you said, when you're already in it and doing it anyway. Why not help somebody out? It makes you feel good. It makes them feel good. And, I think that's great.
Yeah. And if you get a no, okay, move
Right.
on.
Take that person off the
Take that person
person's
off the list.
the carpool list.
Right. Like I said,
Great.
though,
Don't call me.
Yeah. But that's what I think it is. Like, so many people put so much emphasis on the no. What if they
Right.
say no? Okay, so they say no. You move on. You
You
find
better have a
somebody
really good
else.
reason if you're going to say no. Like, have you
Yeah.
ever said no?
Never.
Never. I mean, if I was out
Never.
of the country,
Yeah, right.
But if
Right.
your no had better be a really good reason.
Yeah. And you might have to think about, hiring someone. I mean, that's the reality, right? Like in some
Sure.
cases, you may need to pay somebody
But
for a
again,
little
that's
bit of
getting
help.
back to the taking advantage of someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't think there's a place, you recognize when you're taking, if you're asking your neighbor to babysit your child every single day in lieu of childcare, well,
Yeah,
I
is that
think
taking
there's,
advantage?
right,
Right.
taking
And then they get mad at
advantage.
you.
You're teetering on.
Right.
But I mean,
Right. If they're getting mad at you because you're, clearly taking advantage.
right.
There's a
Social
level.
cues.
Social cues.
Social cues. Yeah.
Back to
We all
communication.
know. We all know. Something else, I mean, kind of similar topic, off topic.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those relationships in the era of social media? So, let's say, for example, your friend asks for rides all week long, and then you wholeheartedly say yes, and you look on their social media page and you see them just kind of, I don't know, doing whatever they're doing. Maybe they're out to dinner
Oh,
every night. Maybe they're
yeah.
traveling the world. Again,
Mm-hmm.
would it bother me? Absolutely not. If a friend needed help because they were going on a fabulous vacation, go
Yeah,
for
but be
it.
transparent.
Be transparent, but also just I think another issue that comes into play nowadays is the fact that everything we do is on social media, and you see or
Yeah.
people just kind of plaster their lives there, and I don't know if it's a good thing.
I know. Yeah, and I think like we were talking a little bit about like jealousy and friendships. I feel like that's where that sort of comes in too, because I will say I have been very mindful about social media for that reason. And maybe this is sort of a little bit off topic, but I feel like for me, I have a really, really hard time disconnecting from my business when I'm here. I work from home, I work at the office, and it's all in my town, and it's very challenging for me to fully disconnect at home. I can't. I'm always feeling pulled, right? So for me, I tend to need the escape, whether that's going out east for a weekend, going down to Florida, whatever the case is. And I found that if I'm posting that, people feel a certain way about that. Or if I have to ask for help for, a support in my life and I'm not super transparent, or they feel like I almost sometimes have to feel, this is just being really real about it. It's like I have to feel it's warranted or I have to justify it. So I'm like, well, I worked
Right.
200 hours last week dealing with,
Didn't post that on Instagram.
Exactly. In the
I didn't think
trenches.
that would be interesting.
Exactly. In the trenches,
Right.
for putting out fires for, 24 hours straight. And now
Right.
I'm taking a break
Right.
and I find myself having to be really mindful about posting that type of stuff because people will come back. I've had situations like that where it's like, questioning certain things that I'm doing or, and subtly, not necessarily, must
Right.
be nice to be able
Right.
to go to Florida whenever you want. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't see my day to day. This is
Right.
my form of disconnection. So, and then having to sort of rely on supports to help me be able to do that if I'm not bringing my kids, or even if I am bringing my kids, the supports at my job that are helping me
Yeah.
keep the business afloat while I'm, taking a much needed break
Yeah, right.
and feeling like this sense of needing to justify it is hard.
I feel like I struggle. I go back and forth because I use social media almost like a photo album for me, right? So if I'm away
Same,
or
yeah.
if I'm with my children, I mean, who's printing out photos nowadays, right? It's literally if I go back, if I want to see what happened a year or two ago, I'll go back through my social media posts and be like, oh, that was so nice. I
Or when the memory comes up, that's
Right.
nice.
I mean, it's an album of
Yeah.
my life. So, I think it's hard because again, I go back and forth. If I'm doing something, if I'm with my family, I want to share and I want to snapshot those memories. But then you recognize that there's someone out there who is watching and who is not happy about what you're
Not
doing,
happy for you.
not happy for you, and they're also not seeing, like you said, what's happening beforehand, right? they're not seeing the 5 a.m. wake up all week long. They're not seeing the running around all over the place. They're not seeing the running of the business, the issue in the business,
Yep.
the trying to hold everything together. And they're not respecting the fact that you are away because you need it, right? And you can understand this as a business owner. If you are taking a vacation of any kind, it is a well thought out, well-oiled machine. I mean, when I go on vacation, the days leading up to that vacation are a tornado.
How about the days coming back?
The days coming back are even worse. So it's like the days leading up to are awful because I am packing everything I possibly can and trying to make sure everybody's needs are met. And then not even that when you're away. Sure, when you come back, it's a shitstorm, right? But when you are away, you're not really away as a business owner, right? You are constantly answering phone calls, constantly checking email. I mean, you're never, so even though obviously I'm not going to post a photo of me on the phone with my office or a client or dealing with an issue, you're only seeing the good.
I just saw this hysterical, I got to send it to you. It was like a TikTok of a man in Disney World. And they're like, what is he doing? He's on like the Dumbo ride on his phone and he's running his business while he's on vacation with his family in Disney World on like all the rides. The guy's taking a phone call. Like it was like real life. I think it was like, I don't know if you've seen those clips, but it's like a reality show on your vacation. And it was this father, he's on like Mine Train and all these different rides, like on his phone, taking the business calls of the day. And this is seriously what we do, right? But I will say it gives me more disconnection than I am at home.
Definitely.
To some degree. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, of course. But I feel like the distance away sort of helps me, and the behind the scenes you're not always seeing. And that's the reality, right?
Yeah.
Like we need the people in our lives that are going to help keep our businesses afloat while we're not there. We need to be able to tune into what we need while we are here and be aware of that, and really think creatively about those support systems, that they might not just be the classic people you think, like your mom and your dad or your friend who helps out, that it's bigger than that.
Sure. I mean, I could shout out a million people right now for my support systems. I feel like I would be remiss to not mention Suzanne.
Oh, Suzanne.
She is the support of my life, but also my, my employees. I mean, my business wouldn't run without them. And I think that, having a wide cast net of support is so key to a successful life. And, people who I think uplift you is really what it comes down to, right? If you're doing something, whether it's a vacation with family or a vacation alone or a girls' trip or, surrounding yourself with the people who really get it and respect you and who are kind of cheering in the background for you is, something that everybody needs. And recognizing who those people are, and I think fostering those relationships and making sure that they understand how important they are in your life is also important.
Yeah, the priorities, right? It's all about priorities.
Yeah, and carving out that extra time and energy and love for those people because, time is fleeting and, you have to recognize the support systems that we have.
Yes, and be grateful for them for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. They don't go without recognition, right?
Should we each list out our support? No.
Let's run them down.
But on a lighthearted note, we're gonna kind of change things up at the end of our podcast today.
I'm excited.
And
I need a little bit
We're always
more,
having
but
champagne.
I'm like enjoying this a little too much. Sparkling Point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that going forward, we want to kind of review the champagne or wine that we're having.
Carnival Rosé.
I've never had this before. So it's Sparkling Point Carnival Rosé, and it is, thank you. Yeah. What, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what are you giving it?
Wow. After polishing the bottle today, I'd say, I'm going to give it a 9. I actually really enjoy this. I think on a summer day, hot summer day outside, this would be really refreshing. I like it.
You know what? I would agree with that. I'd give it a 9 because I always want to like a rosé sparkling. I feel like sometimes there's a little bit of like a bite,
There's no bite with
and there's
this.
no bite. It's really very light, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's something that I can see us having like
Yeah,
poolside or at the beach.
right. I think we're missing like a charcuterie. I'm not going to lie. But I think the packaging is really nice too. Like,
It's
isn't that
pretty.
cute?
So I've been to this vineyard. I know you mentioned you have not yet.
No, I haven't. The North Fork of Long Island.
I have been here. To be honest with you, I was here, I want to say 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a long
We're
time.
due for a visit.
We're due for a visit. They only do sparkling. So, but sparkling rosé, sparkling red, sparkling white, if I'm recalling correctly. And they do a nice tasting where you can set it up where you have chocolate and champagnes or
Oh.
cheeses, and yeah. And it's really kind of nice and different because they have that niche of just sparkling.
Yeah,
And
I love sparkling.
I love bubbles.
Me too.
So bubbles just make everything
No,
better.
me too. I agree.
But yeah, this is good. I'm gonna give it a 9 also. The bubbles
Yeah.
are kind of like light.
It's light bubbles. It's not.
I feel like I would give it the equivalent of like a Pellegrino.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a club soda.
Right.
Pellegrino. It's light and
Yeah, it's a little on the drier side, I would say,
yep,
which I like.
I do too. All right, well, cheers. Cheers,
Well,
Sparkling Point.
cheers.
Thank you.
What'd you say? Bubbly. What's
I
our
said bubbles and boundaries.
bubbles and boundaries?
Bubbles and
Cheers to our
boundaries.
bubbles and boundaries. Let's do
Cheers.
that again.
Thanks for tuning in today.
Please like and subscribe to our social media channels at Champagne Confidential Podcast.